we have created new ways to ease monetary policy. We've brought the federal funds rate target close to zero. We have used forward guidance in our language to affect expectations of policy changes. And of course, as everyone knows, we have now been through 2 rounds of purchases of longer-term securities. Clearly, it is the case that we have done extraordinary things in order to try to help this economy recover.
And that, of course, ahead of the American Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, holding his first ever press conference this afternoon, telling us all the ways that he has saved our economy. Wall Street and world markets listening closely to every word for clues for what the Fed might do next, especially when it comes not only to interest rates, but just how much money they are willing to print. And joining us now with a lot to say in response, outspoken Fed critic, outspoken Ben Bernanke critic, and now a potential 2012 presidential candidate, Republican Congressman Paul of Texas, who recently announced the formation of an exploratory committee for the 2012 race. Congressman, pleasure to have you back. What is the fundamental issue with a single individual or a group of individuals that is the board of the Federal Reserve, basically exercising supreme authority to manage our economy? What is your issue with that?
Well, I don't think they're capable of doing it. I won't even challenge their intentions. They may be well-intentioned, but they can't do it. It's impossible. You know, he talks about all these new programs and designs to inflate the currency, and he just ushered in trillions of dollars worth of new money. Then the question comes up. The key question was, well, what is your position on the dollar? And you know what he said? He said what all the Fed chairmen have told me over the years. Well, that's the job of the Secretary of the Treasury, to take care of the value of the currency. And here he is inflating the currency and destroying it. In the very duration of his 1-hour press conference, the value of the dollar went down. It went down not only in relationship to other currencies, but it went down related to gold about $20 worth. And that's over 1%, maybe close to 1.5%. And then he says that the official policy is a strong dollar. So that to me just that sort of tips me off, and everybody else that should tip them off. It's just talk, you know. And then there was a good question asked about, well, there could be a time when prices will go up. Yeah, he recognized that prices could be going up, and we could get to the point that we would have to do something, and the repercussions on employment could be significant. Of course they could be. I mean, they're going to be forced into that trap, and he's not ready to do it. He won't admit that. Prices always go up for some other reason, never because the Federal Reserve creates new money. That's the part that sort of exasperates me, but he's reflecting a Keynesian version of fiat money and central economic planning that I just totally disagree with.
And so how is it that you would recommend political tools or policy tools are used to rein in that abuse, whether the most obvious one being the threat to our currency, and some of the more minor and offensive ones, everything from Matt Taibbi's coverage of the money that went to the wives of Wall Street, to the bonuses that continue to be paid out to these heavily subsidized banks? What tools exist to rein it in?
Well, the tool should be not to have stable prices. That encourages wage and price controls. What you want is a stable currency. Now, he was pretty sharp, as all Fed chairmen are, about Congress spends too much money and get control of debt. The debt was a very serious problem. But he controls the tools for that. And of course, it is policy that the Fed is supposed to buy up debt and keep interest rates low, and that's going to stimulate the economy. But if we didn't have that policy, that's the most significant policy change that we could have, is take away the power of the Fed to buy the debt that the Congress creates. If they couldn't do that, if the Fed couldn't do that, interest rates would go up, and they say, oh, horrors, horrors. Well, more people would save money and drive interest rates down. Congress would have to quit spending money because they would be draining the reserves out of the financial system. So they would be self-regulating. But as long as the Fed is the lender of last resort, believe me, we're going to continue to have these problems. And it lasted for a long time, especially since 1971, longer than they deserved. But on this go-around, it's not going to be so easy just to inflate our way out. And he did not recognize in the press conference that you can have high prices with a weak economy. He keeps wanting to say high prices go up because of high demand. High demand for oil. That's the only reason the commodity prices are being pushed up. And as long as he accepts that, we're in big trouble, because they will not come up with a solution, and they are destined to destroy the value of the dollar.
If you were to look at your political scenarios over the next year and a half, with the announcement of the exploratory committee, many folks look to you as a voice of rational debate on fiscal conservatism, on American freedom, policies that lead to equality and equal opportunity in this country, as an advocate of those types of economic policies. At the same time, there are those who are skeptical of your ability to win a nomination from the Republican Party because they perceive the Republican base to be overly invested in social issues that ultimately you may not be the strongest candidate to deal with. Do you agree with those who are skeptical of your ability to ride a fiscal conservative's wave to the nomination for president?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about, and that's a bit of reality. But the truth is me personally, I live a very conservative life. I just don't impose it, by laws. But the Republicans also have a shortcoming, because they talk about cutting, but they're urging more spending by Obama on the military. They want more. There's many of them complaining that they're not going in stronger into Libya and doing more and getting rid of that dictator. So they're not willing to look at that. So I think the country is ready for this, to look at monetary policy, look at cutting the programs necessary, concentrating on a wise choice. And I think we should start with cutting this overseas stuff and getting out of all these wars. And I do think the domestic stuff has to be cut. But, to say you're going to cut NPR and Planned Parenthood and think you're going to balance the budget and increase the amount of money we're spending for the military industrial complex, that won't sell, and that's not good economic policy. But we cannot address these problems without seriously considering and understanding how the Federal Reserve works.
If you were to look, though, at the primary process, do you believe that the rhetoric that you just offered to me here, appealing to somebody like myself and a lot of other folks, I suspect, will that play in Iowa?
That's a good question, and we will see. I feel, I was out there yesterday and make the announcement. The reception was dramatically different from 4 years ago. It was an unknown event 4 years ago. So things are different. The campuses are alive and well with these ideas, and the young people know that there's not much future in Social Security. They don't like the foreign policy. So there is a big difference coming, and it's a different world right now. So it remains to be seen, but it will be a real challenge. But and I think that's one of the reasons why there's an exploratory committee, and I will be at a university in Reno tomorrow, and I've been to many in the past month. The receptions keep growing. Yeah. So, but our problems keep growing, and hopefully they see the wisdom in free markets and individual freedom and a sensible foreign policy.
And one of the things, obviously, that's appealing about you as a candidate among those in the GOP field is your incredible intellect and credentials on economic policy, your very rational advocacy of a real debate about our involvement overseas, and certainly from the eyes of somebody like myself, it's why a voice like yours is welcome. At the same time, at the top of the field these days, at least in his own mind, is a man like Donald Trump. How do you view your ability to steer the ship toward the debate that you're having here with me now and away from sort of the absurdity of this morning?
Well, I sort of have been saying the same thing for a long time. I think the debate is coming my way or our way. And, after the campaign was over, even though it was noticeable in 07 and early 08, the crisis was coming. But when the financial bubble burst and the housing bubble burst, all of a sudden, Austrian free market economics gained a lot of credibility. So I think that as long as I stay the course and keep saying the same thing, and the proof of the pudding is the failure of the system that we have and the failure of Keynesianism and the failure of our foreign policy and the shortcomings of fiat money, I think the people are just going to move, and I think this is going to happen. I already see signs of that. Other candidates would certainly not outwardly agree with me, but they'll start using my language. We have to have a sound dollar, and we have to take control. We have to have more clarity with the Federal Reserve and transparency. So I think the language is changing, the intellectual climate is changing, the debate on television is changing, and certainly the debate on the college campus is changing. So I think the revolutionary process in the ideas is moving in the direction that I would like to see it go.
Well, Congressman, it'll be certainly enjoyable to perpetuate this debate in the months and years to come, and you are a leader in helping us do that. We appreciate your time this afternoon. Ron Paul, thank you, sir. I want to bring the mega. Thank you, Ron.